The next few days were relatively uneventful. Mel travelled with human Tom downstream looking for signs of civilization and rescue. Little Tom would hunt the river animals and make lean-tos. Mel cooked and foraged and kept their spirits up. Human Tom even insisted on sharing the night watch with her, once he caught her trying to stay awake. Mel didn't want to let him at first, but was too tired to argue. The river creature still observed them balefully every night. At least Tom was no longer shaking every day. All the walking seemed to have helped him push through his mystery illness. But there was a new problem. The river animals were becoming fewer and fewer the further they travelled, and foraging alone wouldn't be enough to sustain them. Tom's hunt started to grow intermittently unsuccessful. They had seen some sort of flying creatures in the distance from time to time, but way too far away to consider trying to catch one. That was why when she discovered new tracks in the snow during one of her foraging trips, it was a big deal. Beltar was worried. He had travelled far from home by now, deep into another clan's territory. His hunting rations were nearly gone, forcing him to eat sparingly to make the food last. The stupid trolls still hadn't parted with the Godrock metals, and now they had found his tracks in the snow. He was a careful hunter, but trying to keep up with their migration while remaining unobserved was hard work. He had become sloppy, trusting the trolls' slow-witted nature to cover for him. At least they had been easy to follow, Beltar thought. They left very obvious tracks and even more obvious campsites. He had even managed to scavenge some food off their kills that they left behind before other Kraxes consumed the leftovers. They tasted strange. He had never heard of any of his people eating a Kraxus before. Normally it was the other way around. Still, with his rations so low, he couldn't complain about free hunt meats. But with the trolls now knowing of his presence, time had run out. He would have to risk retrieving his stolen prize now, before they started looking for him in earnest. If Beltar failed, he would return without food or metals. Fortunately, it was almost dusk. He would make his move after sundown. Tom examined the new tracks carefully. They looked like they were from a bipedal cat, wide but so shallow that it was a miracle that Mel had found them at all. But that wasn't the most interesting part. They had run parallel to their own tracks almost too when they had reached this campsite. He and Mel were being followed. If someone had found them, why not come forwards to rescue them? The answer was obvious. It wasn't a someone, it was a something. An animal. They were being hunted. Two could play at that game, especially now that the grey crocodiles were getting harder and harder to find. As Tom set his snares in a few places amongst the trees near the campsite, he wondered why it hadn't attacked them yet. Perhaps his blood-stained club was making it wary. The scent of death it now gave off was somewhat potent. Or maybe it was nocturnal. The fire was keeping it at bay. Either way, with luck, they would have full bellies tomorrow. Beltar had snatched a few hours of sleep before waking after dark, to ready himself for the grab and run. There wasn't much to do, except put his plan into action and trust the gods. His spear was sharp, his getaway route thought out, and 2 temporary hiding spots planned. The trolls would never find him in the dark. By morning he would be long gone, his trail covered by the overnight snow. As he approached the campsite, he took careful note of everything he could see. The fire burned low. The trolls were leaning against one another, eyes shut under the crude hut. The heavy club was nearby, in easy reach. And the precious metals were still on the smaller one's side. Beltar crept over to the shelter's entrance. He suddenly felt eyes on the back of his head. Whirling around with his spear raised, he locked eyes with a lone Kraxis, watching him from the darkness. False alarm. He slowly let go of the choked breath in his throat. He could have laughed at how close he had come to soiling himself. A lone Kraxis was dangerous, but not from that distance away. Turning back to the thieves, they were both still asleep. With a deep breath, Beltar wrapped his paw around his prize and pulled, ready to bolt into the safety of the surrounding darkness. With the first hint of a tug, the smaller troll's eyes snapped open and locked onto Beltar's. Time slowed to a halt. Fool! Of course the thing had attached something so shiny firmly to its pelts so it wouldn't lose them. He would never match the troll's strength in a tug of war over the metal. He had failed. All he could do now was survive the encounter. The troll bared his blunt, square teeth menacingly. Time snapped back to full speed, and Beltar ran. Tom was glad the upright, tailless cat had fled. He hadn't wanted to wake Mel if he didn't have to. Poor girl was running herself ragged trying to keep up with him. But he was surprised that the animal had approached them, right until it had touched his keys still hanging from his belt. Ah, that's why it hadn't attacked them. It was distracted by the shiny keys in the firelight. Tom had been about to leap to his feet and give chase when he heard one of his snares activate with a whooshing sound. Never mind. He'll be able to claim his prize in the morning.